You paid £80 for this train and you're standing in the doorway of Coach C. Here's the strange part. On a screen somewhere, this train is a triumph. By the end of this video, you'll know why crowding isn't an accident and how to use the same maths to find the train with the empty seats. Let's start with the number that runs the whole show. Every revenue manager in the rail industry watches one figure above most others: load factor. It's simple, the percentage of available seats that are occupied. A train with 500 seats and 400 passengers is running at 80% load factor. Last time on this channel, I walked through why the same train journey can cost £30 or $120, depending on when you buy. Load factor is the engine behind that. It's the number that determines whether prices rise or fall, whether cheap tickets stay on sale or quietly disappear. Every optimizer, every pricing algorithm is fundamentally trying to push that percentage up, and this is what happens when that maths works too well. Now, to understand why trains get so crowded, you need to understand that a train is actually selling two very different products at the same time. Product 1, advance fares. These are quota controlled. The revenue management system allocates a certain number of seats to each price bucket, say 20 seats at £30, then 15 at 45, then 10 at 65, and so on. As each bucket sells out, the optimizer closes it and opens the next one. The system is methodically managing inventory seat by seat. When you check availability and the cheap advance fares are gone, that's deliberate throttling. Product 2, walk-up fares. Off-peak tickets, anytime tickets. These are valid across a wide range of trains, and critically, they are not capped at a seat count. There is no quota on how many of these can be sold for a given service. Someone turning up at the barrier 10 minutes before departure with a valid anytime ticket is getting on that train. No algorithm stopped them, no bucket closed. So you have a situation where the optimizer carefully controls one stream of passengers, then an entirely separate stream walks through the gate unchecked. The concept of a train being truly sold out barely exists in the way it does for a flight. A flight has a door count, a train has a valid ticket, and the train is leaving. That explains how standing passengers get on. Now here's why nobody added more carriages. Capacity in rail is measured in years, not hours. When a train operating company needs additional rolling stock, it places an order. That order takes years to deliver, years more to finance and approve. Platforms at major stations have fixed lengths. You cannot extend a platform at a busy city terminus quickly or cheaply. The entire fleet is essentially sized for average demand, or close to it. But demand isn't average. Demand is intensely peaky. The 17:30 out of a big city terminus on a Friday in November is not the same animal as the 11:15 on a Tuesday in August. The difference between those two trains in passenger volume can be enormous. Steel and concrete cannot flex to match that difference. Only price can. Which brings us to peak fares and why they only half solve the problem. Peak pricing exists with a clear purpose: shift travelers who have flexibility away from the busiest services and onto quieter ones. And it works. Partially. Leisure travelers, tourists, people visiting family, they look at the price difference between the 8:10 and the 9:30, and many of them take the 9:30. Demand actually does shift. But a large portion of the people on that 8:10 are commuters. And commuters have a fundamental problem. Their meetings don't move. Their school run doesn't move. Their shift start time does not move. The price signal that successfully nudges the leisure traveler does nothing for the person whose working day is structured around that exact train. So the peak price goes up, flexible demand shifts away, and the train still fills to the brim with everyone whose life requires them to be on it. The result is the most uncomfortable combination in the whole system: the highest price and the worst crowding on the same train at the same time. People assume peak pricing is gouging. It isn't. Technically, it's a demand management tool that only has access to half the demand it's trying to manage. Now we can close the loop from the opening. Here is the uncomfortable incentive buried in all of this. A seat that departs empty is revenue that is gone permanently. Unlike a product sitting on a shelf, an unsold train seat at 1731 cannot be sold tomorrow. That specific journey no longer exists. From a pure revenue standpoint, passenger number 501 on a 500-seat train costs the operator almost nothing additional. The train is running anyway. The driver is there anyway. The fuel is burning anyway. That marginal passenger is nearly pure revenue. So when you're standing in Coach C having paid £80 and somewhere a revenue dashboard is showing a high load factor with strong yield, that train genuinely is performing well by every metric the system is built to reward. The system is not punished for your discomfort. It has no mechanism to register your discomfort. It registers revenue per available seat mile, and that number looks excellent. That's why the dashboard calls it a triumph. But here's where this becomes useful to you, rather than just frustrating. The same logic that fills the peak train creates a real problem for the optimizer on quieter services. An empty seat on the 1845 is just as perishable as the one on the 1730. The system is genuinely motivated to fill it. That's where advance fares stay cheap longer. That's where you find a seat reservation without a fight. Shoulder peak trains, the one just before or just after the main rush, often carry a fraction of the passengers at a fraction of the price, precisely because the maths is working in your favor instead of against you. A packed train isn't the system failing, it's the system finishing its job. The empty one 10 minutes later is where the price is begging you to be. The cheapest fare and the free seat are usually on the same train. More hidden maths like this every week.